we do what we do is as important, if not more so, than what we actually do. I'll use the example. Has anybody studied communications besides Nikki? I know it's communications. Only because I've had the college team in a training course, and they're hearing this for the second time. And now I'm going to put you guys on the spot because some of the things, if you don't remember, will be really hurt. So, no pressure. But communications, let's say, well, just roughly, and what was your name, sir?
David Spawner.
So David, you study communications.
Sure.
About how much of communication is what you say versus how you say it, percentage-wise, do you know?
Well, it's like form versus content. You know, it's
It's
everything.
like
You have to have both to make an impression, obviously. But the loudness that you guys project, the media you buy, the number of spots that you're running in any network will really depend on your success. And individually, I think we all have to open up every avenue we can and every medium possible to reach out to everybody we can in a short period of time. I mean, we're kind of in crunch time right now. I don't mean to imply that this is like, but we're crunch time for the 2012 election. Yeah.
No pressure. So that is 100% right. And also kind of in the idea of communication and how we speak to each other, just one-on-one, right? This is not about Americans Elect. This is just sheerly like how it works when you talk to somebody. About 90% of what is communicated to someone is the way you say what you say, not actually the words you use. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Like, if I yell at you, I love you so much!
Right, that means something very different than saying, I love you so much. Right?
Yeah.
I could even say, that's a nice shirt you're wearing. Right? But if I said, that's a nice shirt you're wearing, what does that imply?
Asshole.
It can mean, who knows what it means, right? But it surely doesn't mean like I actually like his shirt. Or it means I didn't like another shirt, right? Or if I said, that's a nice shirt you're wearing, now it means
wearing a shirt?
His shirt might be nice, but his pants aren't, right? Who knows? Or that's a nice shirt you're wearing. It means like your wardrobe sucks, right? Like, the one you're wearing is okay, maybe, but I don't know, right? So just emphasizing a different word in the exact same sentence completely changes the meaning. So if we don't have the right, no matter what we do, if we don't have the right value set underlying it, it actually won't matter very much. And so we're actually going to spend a good bit of this morning figuring some of those things out together, because this is not going to be what Americans Elect National, this is not what Elliot thinks, this is not what Khalil thinks, this is not what anybody you've seen in a TV appearance or an article or an op-ed thinks. This is what we think, and we are Americans Elect. This is it.
Ooh, I like that.
Right? This, you, we, us, are Americans Elect. There's no more of they. Right? Us. So, how do we want to be? What are some of the values we're going to bring to the table here? Honesty. Yeah, absolutely.
Independent, individualistic.
Sincerity.
Foster sincerity. Yeah. Sincerity.
Ooh. Nikki knows that I'm going to jump on this one. And I'm going to take a quick aside, and then Corey will come to you. So I love sincerity.
I think integrity.
And integrity. Actually, those are probably my two favorites, just personally.
Could I get individuality in there too?
Absolutely. I think that was
Yeah.
I want to jump on sincerity really quick, because I love this word, and I don't want to interject too much. But does anybody study Latin or Greek? Anybody do like really geeky? This is something that I was like super geeky in. I thought I'd be like really cool.
Without.
What's that?
The sin must be without.
It is. And you know what Sarah is? What's that?
Without wax.
It means without wax. You know where it comes from?
Yeah, it has to do with Renaissance era painting.
It does. Actually, sculpture. But yeah, no one's ever done this. This is great. This is
Repeat that.
So, sincera means without, what you write, without wax, right? So we sign our letters without wax, right? That's basically what we're saying when we sign a letter sincerely. We're saying without wax. And where it comes from originally is from Renaissance era sculptors. And what happened, they have this huge block of stone, right? And they're chipping out stuff from the sculpture that they're trying to bring out. And if you mess up in stone, it's not like paint. You can't paint over it, right? You're kind of screwed, right? You can only take things away. And so what they do is they would actually put in balls of wax to fill in like the cracks and the little things that had messed up, and it looked like stone. But the most perfect sculptures were the ones that were kind of recognized that they didn't have wax. It didn't mean they didn't have imperfections. It just meant that they were offering the most true, authentic version of what they had created. Right? It was the most soulful, right? The most artful. It was recognizing that you can't have perfection, but you can work with what you have, and that is beautiful. Right? That is authentic.
That is so cool.
It's really cool, right? This is why I love it. And so one of the reasons I love sincerity, like specifically with Americans Elect, and this is a whole little side, I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox, but like America, just really not perfect, right? But it's us, and it's us. We're here, and we're like kind of awesomely beautiful in our own right. Coming together like this to solve a problem, that's unique, and it is who we are, and it's part of like the very authentic kind of soul of our country. And so sincerity in Americans Elect, I feel like is just this awesome value. So, okay, I'm getting off my soapbox now, but that's just kind of like a bigger idea in some ways than some, yeah.
Directness, consistent with tact and respect.
There's a bunch there. So directness and
Consistent with tact and respect.
I got respect. What was the middle part?
Consistent with.
Tact.
Consistent with tact. Okay. Gotcha. I like that a lot. Can you say a little bit more about respect?
RESPECT. Find out what it means.
That is its spelling, which is more. I agree. What else? What about respect is important in this space?
Well, because we're building a coalition and the president has to come from one side of the spectrum and the vice president from the other, we need to have mutual respect for opposing political viewpoints.
Ooh, nice.
Couldn't have said it better. Anybody else want to add? Yeah, I think that's great. Mutual respect, even for opposition. Can I say it that way?
Yeah, I think opposition's a better term than political viewpoints because sometimes political propositions are completely absurd. And just because it's a political proposition doesn't mean you need to respect it, but you should respect the person trying to participate.
Right. Absolutely. So respect is a really important one for Americans Elect because we are fundamentally bringing together things that are often seen to not be on the same side. Fair? Yeah.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah, agree to disagree in some cases. I think mostly we'll find that we agree. I
Yeah.
think that's kind of my guess. What else? What other values do you want to add to the table here? Yeah, back then.
I think growth mindset or open-mindedness.
Open-mindedness, absolutely. Helen's got that. Tell me more about what you mean. Why is that important for Americans Elect?
To know that there are other options that you may not consider.
Absolutely. I mean, kind of fundamentally, when you go talk to anyone else about Americans Elect, do you think they've considered the idea that there's going to be another choice most of the time?
No.
Of course not, right? Right? It is the way it is. Elliot Ackerman uses a great analogy. Who's played Monopoly? Yeah, more or less probably all played Monopoly. Even if you've not played Monopoly, I bet you could sit down and just start playing, right? You don't need to read the rule book. Who's actually read the rule book of Monopoly? Okay, this is why you guys are here, because you guys are also saying people read the bylaws. Which is awesome. Nobody
Yes.
ever reads bylaws. I'm like, I've read the bylaws, all of it. So
And
great.
then argued about
So
that.
most people don't read the rule book. You guys are super strange, and I love you. Don't read the rule book for Monopoly, but if you did, you actually find out there's all these other things you can do, right? It's unexpected, and it's kind of like keeping open mind to the fact that you can play this thing that you already think you know differently is a really kind of crazy idea. And people sit down and they're like, wait, you can do that in Monopoly? I had no idea. I've always played it this way. It's because you've never read all the rules, right? So I think it's a great one. Yeah, what's your name back there?
Kate,
Kate, thanks. And what, well, I was going to say, we get everybody's name here in a minute. But Corey, you had your hand up?
Yeah. We need perseverance to be able to push through all the walls that we're going to hit, and fluidity to be able to change and to morph into what we need to be, and be able to move forward. And we can't be this stringent. We can't put ourselves in a box and not be able to address the issues and be able to form ourselves to what we need to be.
Yeah. Actually, I had a great delegate leader just from another session sent us a little poster that said, I didn't say this was going to be easy. I said this was going to be worth it. Right? 'cause I thought that was such a neat poster. Yeah.
Well, it kind of goes with that being optimistic, having a sense of optimism, that it will happen. You know.
That's another one that I feel like I really like. My background is, if you can't tell, it's behavioral psychology. Because I think like how we do these things and kind of figure those things out is often really important, right? And optimism is a really interesting word because it's different fundamentally. Like actually how your brain is structured often depends on like whether you're an optimist or not. And it actually starts at a really young age, all these different things. But it's different from pessimism and different from cynicism. You may know that like if pessimism, I'll just go tell you, because otherwise, why not? Is it fundamentally like the world is a bad place, right? That's pessimism. Cynicism is really interesting because it's actually usually people who think the world can be better but have been burned. Like they believed, they thought they could do something and it could work and it didn't quite turn out. And that's, I think, a lot of people we're going to talk to, right? They don't have that faith anymore. And if we can bring that faith, that optimism, often that alone can change the dynamic of a conversation you're going to have. Just that one little thing of like, I have faith, you can join me in this.
I think carrying PM, which I call PMA, positive mental energy, and or positive mental attitude, and also see, believe, and achieve. You know, you have to have that mindset. If you can conceive it and believe it, we will achieve it. And that's what you have to. You have to be able to visually, or whatever you utilize in your everyday life, I utilize by visually seeing the end goal. And I actually believe it. And once you have those things under your belt, it's just human nature, you will achieve it. Because everything you do in your life is going to carry you towards that. So I think PMA and CBA.
So positive mental energy.
Mental attitude, conceive, believe, and achieve. You carry that with you, and anything is possible. Anything.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that actually, I think that starts to meet David's goal of higher consciousness, right?
I think what does directly into optimism for me is this concept of a responsibility attitude of taking responsibility for what is going to occur, what is politics today. I mean, ultimately, we're responsible for what we've invested in and what the current environment is today. So, the very divisive discourse that exists today is one of an oversight and somebody else's problem set versus one of an optimism of we can change this, we take responsibility, and we can actually achieve difference into the future.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of said it this morning already too, right? Like, there is no one that is going to change this system in Washington. It is not going to happen. They will not do it. They are out there and you have zero control over their decisions, right? We can do this, but only if we take responsibility and act on doing it, right? And like that frame, you guys wouldn't be here if you didn't have it, right? But conveying that to others, that this is ours. This is not theirs to give to us, right? This is ours to own and to change when it needs changing. And in fact, it is our responsibility to do it because we are the people, right? Like that. Yeah. That's where we got to be. Yeah. And go over. You actually said anything.
Yeah. Actually, two things. Kind of off of what he just said. I'm reminded of a little saying where so you go into the bathroom and the sink's on, and everybody says, somebody really ought to shut that off. And the next person walks in, look, the sink's running. What a waste. Somebody ought to do something about that. And then somebody else walks in and walks over and shuts it off. So as far as, you got to take action, not just talk about it, do something about it. But the other thing I wanted to mention was for us to be successful, we're going to have to bring in a lot of people. And that's going to require some reasonable compromise.
Yeah, compromise and looking for synergy.
I was going to jump on the first thing you said, which I'm going to take away is proactive, right? The person that doesn't shut the sink off isn't being proactive. And that's going to be something that I think we want to talk a lot about here as a value, which is being proactive, which means not necessarily coming to Andrew either and asking for permission or asking for something, but just going out and doing it. The rapid response team that we talked about earlier, that's sort of their hallmark is they're definitely not running their comments, running their ideas, running the articles that they're touching on. They're not running through those through anybody. They're just going and doing it. So being proactive, I think, is a major value to take away that I think really leads to energy and action on our part. So
yeah, it absolutely does.
Say compromise.
What's that? I was going to say, I knew there was one that was missing. Yeah, so compromise, I think it was said earlier, consensus as well. Like I think that
touched on a sense of duty earlier, and that's something that I would talk about. It's really near and dear to me. It's because, you know, we need to be willing to have that sense of duty that we're willing to stand up and fight for this country and fight for the survival of what we all believe in, and trying to stand up and say that we're not going to sit back on the sidelines and watch as our politicians, self-destruct, and we're going to do something. We're going to fight. And having that sense of duty that it is our responsibility, it's our country, we are not going to stand by and allow this to fail.
Nothing possible to add to that. That's great. Yeah, Becky. What's your name?
Being as nonpartisan as possible, you know?
Yeah. Or maybe even something like, yeah, I guess it's nonpartisan. The technical term of nonpartisan, not the way that people often use it, right? Which is that it is neither Republican or Democrat. We can mean nonpartisan, it actually just mean like parties, right? What non-party centric, yeah, I love that, absolutely. Go, you then back to you.
Empowered.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to be empowered to take control of the situation and do what's right based on values.
Yeah, and I think that empowered relates very much to being proactive, to being optimistic, to kind of having all those different things, right? That if we do those, if we have those values, then we are empowered. And knowing that that actually, like, who the heck, we're the freaking United States. Like, that was the whole point, right? That we would be empowered. Otherwise, why bother, right? I mean, that really was, that is who we are. So absolutely, love it. Yeah.
Oh, nonviolence.
Nonviolent. Yeah. Why?
Nonviolent struggle.
Yeah. This is, I mean, isn't it kind of think about it in the context of history. Somebody mentioned that earlier as being important. Like, we potentially are going to, not overthrow, that maybe is a strong word, but like upend, at least, disrupt a system that is very entrenched. Guess how that used to work out? Like, not even that long ago. Like, actually still in other countries right now.
Military violence.
Yeah, there's military. If you try to like say that there's two-party control and we think that's bad and we're going to come up with another system to go around it,
physically overthrow the system.
They'd have to physically overthrow. In fact, there's about 20 countries in the Middle East doing that right now. Right? They are having to go out and fight tanks. We have the amazing privilege and opportunity to do this with a struggle of ideas and organized people. Wow. Right? Wow. So cool. So yeah, keeping with that value of just this isn't a violent thing. This is a part of making our country greater and better. Absolutely. Yeah. Right here, yeah.
I wanted to kind of follow up with the conceiving and achieving thing. I think an important aspect of that too is follow through. Because like if you talk to any elite athlete, they don't live in the moment they take the shot. They're living in the 3 seconds before and the 3 seconds after, because they picture it, and before they're even done picturing it, they've already taken the shot. And then you'll notice they just stay there and make sure that everything's gone well before they move on to the next thing. I think that's really important for us. You can't just say, okay, we've got ballot access here, we can slack off now. You have to keep following through, keep moving on to the next shot, the next thing you've got to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. That's a good analogy too. Thank you.
I think the underbelly of all of this is a sense of excitement that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
That's motivating all of us. And I believe that we're all on the verge of an online revolution in a way, because we don't have to get the right to speak publicly in large groups. We can do it online, and we can all interact. So this is kind of a buzz and excitement that's brewing, and it's happening whether we like it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it'll happen because we make it happen.
Well, maybe not. It's also happening everywhere.
That's true.
There's a general disgust for the existing two-party system.
That's true.
We can grab on.
I agree, absolutely, online movement and core to like what we have to do, but nothing gets done if you're not in the living room, you're not in the dining at the diner, you're not sitting next to people, getting around people. It's not about a tweet, Facebook post status. It's about people doing things and people moving and people acting. So part of that piece of very easy to be social, very easy to be very much out there. We all have to remember that ultimately to affect change, we have to have people affecting change. And
but this has to be easy too. Yeah, it has to be easy for everybody. And everyone's kind of in a collective separateness, and we all love our little world that we live in. if it's all easy, it's going to happen. But I agree with you. The touching the human element.
Dan, right? I couldn't possibly agree more, right, that and one of the things we'll talk about in a minute is use the internet to get off the internet, right? That is one of the things that has to happen. The internet is a critical tool, and use it to get off the internet.
Get off on the internet?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just didn't understand.
He took it there.
I'm sorry. You were waiting for it.
Okay, anything else? And this is an amazing list, and again, we can always add to it over the course of the day. Is there anything that hasn't been said that if you don't say it?
We need to quit waiting for permission from the groups.
Perfect, next thing you said. Yeah, quit waiting for permission, right? Err on the side of action. Ask for forgiveness, not for permission, right? That's I'm totally allowed to tell you that, and Kellen's allowed to tell you that as part of Americans Elect. Do stuff without asking the Americans Elect leadership or whoever that is. It's not them, it's us. So do stuff. And if it's wrong, then we'll say like, hey, let's do it differently next time. And that's great, right? But don't bother asking for permission. And it's okay to have like the guys. But just so you know, up here for whatever reason, the echoing of like the little side conversations that are happening get really loud for some reason. The acoustics. So I have a hard time hearing other people when other people are talking. So it's just not a big deal. But just either keep it really really quiet, or try to have a different conversation elsewhere. There's one more over here. Yeah.
Contentedness, because Americans like the process, and we're not choosing. We don't have a candidate right now, and we all have our own pet candidates that we may be interested in. We all have our own political ideologies that we bring to the table. But Americans Elect is going to elect somebody or nominate somebody that may not fit our little ideal list. We have to be content with what all the delegates come up with. And still support the process, even if it yields results that we may not ideologically believe in.
I think that's really, that's a critical thing to kind of remember, right? So, Americans Elect is a process. This is not to correct anything. I'll just also add the notion that it is important that we all participate, otherwise it doesn't work, right? It's kind of pointless to set up if we don't all participate. And there may be results that not everyone's going to like, right? It may not be your first choice, but it is ultimately our choice because we worked in the process and we made that choice together. So sticking together in that choice, I think, is an important value. Does that kind of summing up what you're saying? That's a really important one, yeah.
Kind of add to that the whole idea that when you're said and done, you nominated somebody in a way, you're proving that it can be done in a way. So even if it's not 100% somebody that you might agree with on everything, there's no way it's going to satisfy everybody. But we still go out and say we want another way to have this accomplished. We want another way.
Yeah, and we are creating another way.
Voice that opinion through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. We got.
I think the word you're looking for is unity.
Yeah, it may be. I mean, you guys. I'm not looking for any words. You guys are the ones coming up with words.
We are.
Yeah. So unity is great. And we get okay. Right, like just for the sake of time, we got 3 hands. Who has something else they'd like to say at this point? Okay, so Sean, it's okay if you do. I just want to make sure that let's try to wrap up in the next 2 or 3 minutes on this section. And we can always add to this. These are values, like these are ideas. We can always add to these. So Sean, and then
I think this is one of the ones we had for the college group, and I think it was really valuable. It was trust. There were a number of different ideological backgrounds in that room in St. Louis, and we didn't argue once despite that. We all felt comfortable saying what was on our mind. And without trust, that wouldn't happen. So from what was on the list in St. Louis that isn't there now, I think that's the most important one.
that's awesome, right? Because that trust implies like what's going to happen in the next 36 hours is right here is really important, and we need to be able to trust each other, even just to be able to share these ideas, right? We need to be able to make a joke and trust that people are going to not think we're bad people, or talk about what we've seen or done and tell our own personal story, and trust that it's not going to be looked at negatively, right? That trust has to start with us right here, right now, and then we have to be able to project that out. I think it's really important. Is anybody? Is there any of these that anyone disagrees with? Think that should come off this list?
I think positive mental attitude should be removed.
Non-violence. And I love segues. Not the little things you ride, the little things that transition you.
Can you repeat the rules one more time?
Sure. Well, how about this? I'll go through them one by one.
Okay.
I'll say them as I go. Is that cool? All right. So names matter. Anybody know who Grover Norquist is?
Yes.
Who is Grover Norquist? Just quickly. Who is he?
He runs that political action committee that makes people not ever raise taxes regardless of the situation.
Right. He asked congresspersons to sign a pledge that they will never raise taxes, right? I'm going to make the case, or I'll just argue, and you can disagree with me, but Grover Norquist is probably the most effective organizer in the country in terms of getting political action to happen, right? Actual congresspersons who make the decision about raising taxes or not have pledged not to do it because of his work, right? He has one rule that sits at the heart of his work that makes him probably, if not the most, one of the most effective organizers in the United States. Anybody ever heard this or read it? Know what it is? Before I tell you. People need to know each other's names. The single best thing he did was start to host a meeting in Washington every week, every Wednesday, that anybody could come to, and people would just talk. And before you talk, you say your name, right? And people just get to know who each other are, and they begin to work together. People can't work together that don't know each other, right? And that's actually at the heart of a bunch of things, including, as we said before, use the internet to get off the internet, like Dan was talking about, right? It's in the living rooms, it's in coffee shops. The names matter. That's kind of rule 3. Rule 1, who knows the golden rule? What is it? Yeah. That's the golden rule of Washington. Close. For people that didn't hear that, it's he who has the gold makes the rules. That's not the one we're going to talk about. An interesting rule that hopefully Americans like to do something about. Chris, yeah?
Do unto others as you have done to you, or expect what you've done to come back at you.
Right, or treat others the way that they want, the way you want to be treated, or whatever. You can phrase it any number of ways. The golden rule generally, treat others the way that you want to be treated. I use this analogy a lot, and I'm going to use Alice. But I like to hug people. Like I like meet somebody, and I could, like, at the end of the day today, I'm going to leave, and I'll be like, man, I love you guys. This would be great, right? I love that. I'll just give you a hug. It's cool with me. Alice, how do you feel about hugs?
Invasion of personal space.
Absolutely. Right? You are not a fan. Anybody else not a fan of hugs with people they hardly know? Yeah. I'm weird, I know.
Just depends on the sex that's given, I guess.
You probably wouldn't be so cool, you know. Who knows? But point is, if I treat Alice the way that I want to be treated, how does that work out for Alice? Yeah, she don't like it if I treat her the way that I want to be treated. So a slightly better way to think about this is to treat others the way that they want to be treated. Right? And how do you know what other people would want? So if I treat Alice the way that I would like to be, which is to give her a hug, she's like, oh, I don't really want that. How do I know that she's not going to want that? I'm going to have to ask her. I have some kind of relationship with her, right? And even a small one where I just have some basic understanding that that's not what she wants.
Your answer to the request.
Yeah, be forthcoming, be open, and that's a lot of the values, right, that we said about how we're going to be, right? If we treat someone with respect, we have a relationship, we're open and honest, we're transparent about ourselves and what we're doing, we're probably going to have some kind of basic relationship, get to know their first name. And also, it just requires one other thing, which is rule number 2, which is hidden behind these clever acronyms, is just you got to listen to each other. It's like a really, really basic thing. But I notice even this morning so far, right, some of us, and I do this too, this is not like an indictment, it just happens, it's human nature. You kind of wait for your turn to talk versus listening to what the person's actually saying, right? So my clever little acronym, and I tend to put things in kitschy little phrases that hopefully are more memorable, is LARA, L-A-R-A. Now, I've seen this before. What does that stand for?
Listen.
Oh, look at that. That's great.
Listen, affirm, respond, add.
Add information, yeah. So listening and affirming, right? That's your first job, often in engaging a new conversation. So, what was your name, sir? Jim. Jim, you said that you've talked to complete strangers, right? A lot of Americans elect. Now, did it start with you just launching at them, or were you kind of listening to what they had to say first? I'm just curious.
It was in context. So
So you kind of participated in the space, you're kind of there, and you understood what was going on around you, and you had some kind of even base level understanding of relationship with other people, and then we were able to add information to that, right? Awesome. Anybody else had a conversation with someone about Americans Elect at some point, some way? If you haven't, it's kind of weird. So listen, affirm, respond, add information. And the way this actually ends up looking in practice often is like this. I can't write it. Right? It's you're listening, you're affirming, you're listening, you're affirming, you're listening, you're affirming. Then you respond, then you add information. Right? And it's actually, it means you're deeply committed to actually understanding the kind of the story of what the person has. Have you ever heard a vent or a rant about politics? Mm-hmm. Yeah? Right? How long can those go?
Filibuster.
2 days later.
It's amazing what happens though when you actually genuinely listen to someone and what they're trying to say, even when they're ranting and venting, and how annoying that can be to be on the receiving end of. But at a certain point, actually just kind of acknowledging that this is a frustration that they have, adding or responding, that's frustrating for me too, right? It's an affirmation and a response. Man, I really feel the same way. And one of the things that I've been doing about it is to be working with this group called Americans Elect. You also have, like, that actually begs the question from them often, what is that? How can I, what has been your result, right? It's a door opening that you have. It simply started by listening and affirming. Yeah.
I just wanted to affirm what you're saying, that while talking to strangers, it's more applicable to them, you listen to them, and apply your intellect to how it will help them so that they feel attached to the community because it's something they are connected with. It's something they care about, and it's how that will help them.
Right. And you can't connect and you can't be in contact, you can't do that without just kind of that basic. This is so ridiculous in some ways, right? Like these are the things I would literally tell a 7-year-old, right? These are a great way to organize, is to treat others, with kindness and respect, kind of the way that they'd like to be treated. Listen to them and know their name. They're so simple, right? They're so simple, and yet, like, we don't, just by making it our intention to do those things, it actually changes the dynamic of how we're able to succeed in building leaders. Yeah.
Have you ever been approached by a religious leader who love bombed you with all kinds of positive things? And
I
you
have.
felt like weird. It's like, wow, this is weird. This person's like too positive. I think in every conversation there's this side thing going on where we don't trust each other and we're disbelieving the other person. So what you're saying goes in contrast to that undercurrent, which eventually builds the evaluation we have of the person we're talking to, whether it's positive or negative. So I think to avoid groupthink and this over-positive zeal, you have to get real. And I think getting real is one of the key components to being effective.
Sure.
And that's not in your LARP concept.
Okay. So do we need to add getting real?
I'm afraid so.
How about this? Can I argue that it's been added?
Oh, okay.
It was added with sincerity and integrity and honesty.
I forgot that.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Realness is basically one of the values that's pervading. So again, it's to try things that have never been done before. Right? Does that make sense? Somebody mentioned Einstein earlier. We had somebody from back there, and I think Montana, you mentioned Einstein. One of his great quotes, anybody know about consciousness, his quote on consciousness and problems?
Oh, yes. This is one of my favorites of his. He said, problems are never solved on the level at which they're created.
You guys hear that? You can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created the problem. Right? You can't solve a problem of party leadership, or you can't solve a problem with the way the government works with party leaders. You should, right? And that's why, is anybody here a party leader? No. Well, you've been. Maybe I know.
But not the traditional party.
Not a traditional party.
But,
let's say this. Republican, Democrat. But the point being is,
Yes.
you can't solve the problem, right? So you actually need to try new things. That's really the point. You are required. We can't do it unless we try new things. Yeah?
You know the definition of insanity?
I do, but why don't you tell everyone?
Anybody know?
Same thing over and over again, different result.
Yeah, basically expecting a different result by doing the same thing or some form of
This is a Ben Franklin
Doing the
letter.
same thing all the
Yeah.
time, expecting a different result.
Ben Franklin wrote that to his father in this great letter. He said, for everyone to wait, now then you will hear. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing again and again and expecting a different result. That sound familiar? Ever heard of a change election in the media? Right? Oh, this is a change election. We're going to change everything by doing the exact same thing we did 2 years ago, and 2 years before that, and 2 years before that, right? Every election since 2006 has been a change election as defined by the media. How has that worked out for you guys? Yeah, nothing's changed, right? So the idea of trying something different. Now, what I mean by harder as well is that you can fail cheaply, quickly, and adjust, right? Like that's what that also means, is that you can try something, if it doesn't work, you can quickly adapt and try something else. Right, but so the value is we have to try some new things. We have to try a lot of new things, some of which will not work, and that's okay. So laugh, learn, and adjust. That's kind of the value here. Transparent in real time. Does anybody need a definition of transparency? Right? Right. We're all pretty much on the same page there. As leaders, what does this mean for you personally? Right? As you go back in your communities and you then become a representation of Americans Elect. That's what's going to happen. You guys will be leaders on behalf of Americans Elect, on behalf of yourselves, maybe if you're a candidate like David. That's fine. Being transparent about what you know and letting people know as soon as you know it is kind of what we have to do, right? So you may not be able to answer every question about Americans Elect. That's okay. You don't have to. As soon as you don't know something, ask other people. This is a team now, so maybe somebody else knows the answer to the thing that you don't know, right? And if we can't answer it, then we'll just be honest and transparent about that, but doing it in real time.
Like streaming.
It's like streaming, yeah. So this is transparency, right? If for instance, if let's say people who are scared of Americans Elect now wanted to know how we were talking to leaders across the country, guess what? We're totally transparent with it. We are totally open sourcing this. Anybody can take these ideas and do whatever the heck they want with them, right? Anything that you guys are saying, other people can work with too. No problem. Yeah.
There's like a thing going on with Americans Elect, and you guys, not you, but like just Americans Elect in general, they wouldn't tell people who's sponsoring them. I don't know if that's still an issue.
Yeah.
But that I think is a big deal in terms of transparency. Right.
So I think that's a bigger conversation. So we're going to parking lot it and actually talk about it after lunch because I think it's a great question.
Just while you're on the parking lot, can you add the candidate issue?
Absolutely. One thing I will say, and it's really interesting, and I know Calvin will talk more about this because it's kind of more interesting than mine in some ways. But on the money side, I used to work in government transparency. I worked for a group called the Sunlight Foundation, which some of you may or may not have heard of. And to build teams and to do things like this, it just costs some money. So anyway, this is my personal story. This is not an explanation of all the money things, and I'm going to take a couple questions, but we'll probably have to come back to this. I'm just letting you know that that's a personal story of a big transition over the last year for me of being a huge, like, I don't like it if it's totally transparent, to, okay, I can get what we're doing with this, and this is why it might make some sense. Is that useful at all?
Yes.
It's useful. Okay.
I like
Cool.
that. That's-
Cool. Yeah, right here.
Yeah, my name is Bill. The legal answer to that question may not be the PR answer that you want to give, but the laws are designed for a particular reason. And Americans Elect does not have to disclose who the donors are because of the purpose of it. It is not engaging in electioneering right now, so the laws don't require to disclose those things. And it's like if you're building a park in a particular community and someone donates to build a park, maybe all the neighbors there, some of them won't like the park because they don't want all the kids coming in. And they'll say, well, I want to know who's contributing to this park. Well, the law doesn't require to disclose who that donor is because the government and the people have an interest in disclosing only for particular issues. And since we're not electioneering, there's not a requirement to disclose. And there may be a PR reason to disclose it, but legally you're not required to, and there's reason for the law to be that way.
I think that maybe, I'm not saying that it's a legal issue, I'm more saying that if I'm going to put trust into something that either I'm putting money into or something, I would rather know. Or a political party, whatever you guys want to call it, if you're saying that you're nonpartisan or you're neutral, I want to know that you're not getting a contribution
think that, I mean, that ultimately is the thing, right? Like, this has to be, people don't join something and they don't make the choice to lead with you and with us unless they can trust it, and that's what we have to address. So I think it's a really valid, important concern. Okay, we got 6 hands up. Let's go boom, 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 over here in the back. So, yeah.
My name is Ken Deere, and this is just, and correct me if I'm wrong anywhere in this argument. When I've spoken to people when I've spoken to people and I've tried to tell them about American Flag, I've had sort of like conspiracy theorists come up to me and say, you know, this is you're trying to split the Republican vote, or you're trying to split the Democratic vote, and this is just me, and like I said, correct me if I'm wrong anywhere in this, but from my understanding is if, let's say hypothetically, we're funded by a leftist organization, if that person is giving us money, or you know, the candidate money, he or she would want to ensure that the candidate would win. Now, my understanding is that once the Americans elect candidate is chosen, Americans elect steps away. So we have no way of ensuring the victory of that person. And I've tried, I mean,
the only thing Americans elect can do, just law-wise, and again, we can address this a little more later, legally, the only thing the actual organization can do is to create ballot access, to get a space on the ballot for some name to go, and to run a technology platform that allows other people to make the choice of who their candidate's going to be. That's the only thing we can do. It truly, Elliot and Khalil and everyone else will go to jail if they try to promote a candidate. Like they cannot do it, or else there will be very serious legal repercussions. So I think that's it's a good point, and we'll at some point, if we don't remind me, we'll come back to this idea of ballot splitting, vote splitting. Yeah, back here we had a hand. Yeah.
Bruce, how about something like the range of sponsors, number of people, some kind of anonymous representation of that demonstrates the broadness of the grassroots effort or absence thereof in terms of funding, something that would, without giving out names, that would give us an idea of where the finance is coming from.
So the idea of an audit board, typically of trusted Americans, potentially big names as well as some grassroots supporter, is something that we've talked about a lot, and I think is actually going to happen. What you can, they are on the website, so you can actually share that, which is often really useful. But the idea to get Colin Powell and I don't know some other people that generally Americans trust to look at the actual donors and say, there's no corporations, there's no PACs, there's no political parties donating here. This is just individuals who want to change the system. Is an idea that is moving up because of people like you speaking up and saying it. So thank you, and know that people agree. So yeah, and Aubrey had her hand up.
Back to your PR question, I'm struggling with it, and I noticed that a lot is like funding, because that's in politics. Everybody wants to know where they're getting their money, because that's eventually what's going to come out as a result, right?
Louder. Sorry,
I'm not a very loud speaker.
It's fine, I can repeat it.
Who are you?
I'm Aubrey, by the way. And so I think what I've come to understand is that you can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. And so that's kind of what American Arts is doing, is trying not to understand where the money is coming from, so that we get a different result, and we get funders that will dump money into a thing that they don't have anything out there. Because I think that's a big thing, is everyone is, either Republican or Democrat, and so they're trying to support a different cause, so we get a different, result. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense, but I just feel like the transparency is completely what our government isn't about. So I feel like what you're saying is doing the same thing, expecting the same results. Being completely honest and trustworthy and transparent is something that we have not done in a really long time, especially in the past decade. So it's kind of like we wouldn't be doing the same thing if we're like, look, we're not scared. If there's people I'm talking about corporations. I'm not talking about the people who are, the Republican Party, or anything like that. I'm talking about big corporations that I'm worried about and that have flawed our political system as it is.
What's your name again?
Ariel.
Ariel, can I come back to you in about 20 minutes? And I want you to tell that story again. Okay? Remind me to do this. So I think what I hear from a lot of people, right, not only in this room, but also just around the country, I think this is the story we all should share, is that there's a deep distrust of what the political system is right now and where it is and what's influencing it. And I think that's kind of part of a lot of the reason why a lot of us are here. Is that fair? I think.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So yeah, we've got some dramatic arm waves because it's just really deeply part of it. So here's what I'd like to do. And what was your name? Tanvir. I was like, that's why I can't read it. It's like Tommy from here. It kind of looks like Tommy. But I was like, what's going on here? And where did this come from? Right, where are you from, Andrew?
New York.
New York. So are there homeless people in New York? Right, there's homelessness in New York, but does it have to be that way, right? Like, what is the next set of questions that you can ultimately ask? And so the experience of going and seeing with your own eyes and smelling with your nose what it's like, and being in a different part of town maybe, or being with a different set of people who you would not otherwise be around, gets you to start to see the root of the issue, which you then, if they do their jobs, moves you with a group of leaders like that you went with your school, or maybe that you organize yourself to say, okay, there is homelessness all around us right now. That is unacceptable in my view, and I'm going to do something about it, right? And now, Habitat doesn't even need to be involved anymore. You did it on your own, right? Habitat didn't even ask you to do it. You just organized it because you don't think it should be the case that there are people without a roof over their head in your tent. Amazing act of leadership, right? If you think about it at that level.
But at the same time, if that's economically inefficient, are you not simply spreading economic inefficiency?
Well, to go with that, so if that's Habitat's mission, right? If it would actually be cheaper in many ways just to get some volunteers, like almost like Brazil, right? And instead of just getting anybody, just getting engineers and just getting carpenters, what would that do to the overall mission? Narrows it tremendously, right? So now, how many people have heard of Habitat for Humanity, even if you've never done a build?
Yeah.
Right? How many people, and you know what it is, so even if you just read about it, it's now already a trusted institution that even if somebody just asked you, hey, I'm going to go down to Habitat on Saturday, you know what it is, you know how to get involved, and you know what it is that you're ultimately trying to do, right? That only happens because of people like you guys who have gone and volunteered and been involved and then share with others. And so in many ways, the leadership that you are providing as leaders of Americans Elect is about catalyzing this experience, this choice, right? You're trying, the leadership really at its heart, and this is a definition that's not mine, is just the choice to lead, like the choice to step up and act, right? That is leadership. That is an act that you are offering someone to be able to do. I'm saying it again and again and again because I just really want this to sink in. And you're trying to catalyze this process where ultimately people around you act on their own without your input, right? If Americans Elect started with 10 people in an office, like that will not grow or do anything unless other people around the country, just like everyone here, starts to take ownership of it and do it on their own, beyond any ask or control or anything from the national office. Yeah.
I just want to bring something up, and I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but I've seen this. We've all seen what America's concept of leadership looks like, and it all hasn't always been. It's called leadership, and it all hasn't always been pretty. And so I guess I just want to. I'm not sure if it's a question or a statement, but I just want to say that being really clear about what we really, and if there is a sincere intent to authentically lead, that's great. But I just think that the time for individual will is over. Like, the man on top of the mountain, that type of thing. So in saying leadership, I think we need to be really clear about what we, like, not asserting our individual will of what we think that, like, not individual will, but more of a collective vision of what leadership really is, more of a sharing kind of thing, and something that comes from the heart. And I know that Americans Elect, I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that's what it was, but I'm just saying maybe a little bit, could we be more clear about what we're saying? Do you know what I mean about leadership, because leadership, what it looks like out there in the we're leading, well, but they're not even representing their constituency, us. It's like the 1% trying to represent the, I mean, it's.
Absolutely. So, does anybody share Montana's sentiment? Just raise your hand. Like, kind of feel kind of what she's feeling. Okay. So I'll offer back, and thank you for sharing that. This is what we mean, right? This is how we will lead. So this is what we're saying, kind of like these are our values. This when we step up, this is what leadership looks like. It looks like we're leadership of control. It looks like a co-creation with others. It looks like, right, so that's what we mean in our group by leadership. That's kind of what I think we've been talking about so far, but continuing to clarify that is going to be really important. So I appreciate you bringing this for crowd over there. So the idea of kind of walking through this would be, well, let's take an example, and that'll kind of hopefully do your thing. Let's say I'm going to use a college student, if that's okay, just kind of to start. College student sitting on the couch and playing video games, going to class, going back from class, going to parties at night. That's kind of like just existing and being a member of a campus, right? That's a member. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just what they're doing. They're just hanging out. That's cool. They're kind of just doing their thing. That's like stage one, right? And then somebody, let's say, asks you, somebody you know, somebody you trust, somebody whose opinion you respect, asks you to join them in doing something. Going on a habitat build, could be going to a different restaurant, like whatever it is, right? They're asking you to do something with them. And that experience, that is kind of the next stage. You actually go with that person, the member, the kind of person just doing their thing, gets out of their chair, stops playing their video game, or stops watching TV at night, or whatever it is in the context that's not college, and does something else because of that invitation, right? It's an invitation to join, to act. And then because of that, right, after the fact, so you now are back from going on a habitat build, you're now back from a volunteer experience or something else, you're now back from going to dinner, whatever it is, and you're starting to ask questions. I just went and saw someone who didn't have a home, and I tried to help them build it. Why does that happen in my town? Right? We call it, the stage is called conscientiousness, right? You're starting to say, what are the socioeconomic factors here? What are the historical factors here? Was there always homelessness in my town? Right? Did this come from somewhere? Did it start at some point? What happened that made this the way that it is now? And asking those questions. And once you ask them, making the next transition to say, okay, this is the way that it is. What can I do about it? What can I do about it? What will I do about it? What is the most effective thing I can do about this? How can I invite others who are here to join me in doing something about it? Right? So it's kind of it's not just a one-time thing. Did anybody have to go through a process of asking questions before they showed up here today? Yeah. Or did anybody not have to go through a series of questions? Did anybody have just like immediately saw something and said, I'm going to California? Anybody? No? Actually, last training, somebody was like, yep. I was like, great. 1 in 50. Awesome. Like, that's actually great. That sometimes will happen, that they go straight from there to there. Usually that's because of their own personal experience. They already know a lot of things that are happening. They're like, this is it, right? Boom. Most of the time, that will not be the case. Yeah.
My name's Heath from Bakersfield. I think that was kind of the case. I don't know. I stumbled upon Americans Elect just by Googling, will a third party ever matter? And somehow I brought it up, first choice. And I clicked on it, and immediately I was like, all right, this is it. I want to get involved with this. I had that feeling.
So the catalytic experience in your case was the fact that it showed up in a Google search. Like somebody had to do that, right? Like somebody had to be smart enough to offer that possibility, right, in the space of a Google search. So that's something that is happening, right? That's why some of your online work that you guys are doing, when somebody searches for Americans Elect, they see a comment or a blog post or whatever, and that turns out people like you, right? Yeah, right.